Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I'm going to start with a couple verses from Matthew 5. Verses 44 and 45. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you, and do good to them that hate you. Pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. That ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. I'm going to talk a little bit this evening about the blessings of God. The blessings that's for the basic blessings that for our sustenance. It is given to the just, it's given to the unjust, it's given to us all. I'll start out with healthy mothers bringing home healthy babies. Let's start with life. When we hear of a lady getting pregnant, growing a family, it's almost a certainty that in a few months they'll be home with a happy baby, a healthy mother. It's a wonderful thing, and it's very, very rare to hear of a problem there anymore, thank goodness and thank God. Then the kids are off to school. We have very safe schools. When the kids get on the bus, it's just a certainty they'll be home safe. There are cities in our country where the schools are very unsafe. Gangs run them. There's schools in other countries where the school is the only safe place they can be. They'll be okay if they can just make it to school. Very, very blessed by God to have the schools for the kids. I'm going to read a verse from Psalms 85. The 12th verse, 85th Psalm. Yea, the Lord shall give that which is good, and our land shall yield her increase. We have an abundance of food in America. From the time God put people on earth up to just a couple hundred years ago, man's main job when he got up was find something to eat, feed him, feed his family. And if he was smart, he got a little extra to put away for the winter. These days, everybody's too busy doing other things. 2% of this country feeds themselves and 330 million other Americans. And there's $50 billion of food left over to export. That's amazing. The seed corn that I could put in my truck out there, put in the ground properly, it takes 20 tractor and trailer loads to haul it to market. And the genetic scientists who made all this possible, it's amazing. They're doing their job. The yields need to increase to feed this country. But for everything they've done, they've yet to bring one kernel of corn out of that lab that was man-made. Everything they do starts with what God handed us. And the soil we planted in, fertilizer, lime, everything that's needed, it all starts with the soil God gave us. I'm going to turn to the 4th chapter of John. 10th verse. Jesus answered and said unto her, he's speaking to the Samaritan woman at the well, If thou knowest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee the living water. The woman saith to him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. Have you ever been thirsty? Water is the most important material possession on this earth. 1 in 9 around this globe, 800 million people don't have access to safe, clean drinking water. And it's no wonder Jesus uses an analogy of being the living water, because the most important thing we need is our material water for our material life on this earth. And the most important thing we need for our spiritual life is the living water. And it's no coincidence that when you come up out of the material water, you go straight into the living water. How about safety of where we live in our little community here? This is specific to us. Out west is earthquakes, fires, landslides. The Midwest is killers of winter storms, tornadoes. Gulf of Mexico, the south coast, the east coast is hurricanes. And then circle around to the north again, you got more killer storms. And right here in our own little valley here, you just hardly ever hear of a weather-related death. You know, in 1985, 17 inches of rain fell in the mountains of West Virginia in one day. I was up there 2 or 3 weeks after that. It's the most devastating, amazing thing I ever seen. In the fall of 2010, a tornado come across to southern Ohio, crossed the creek at Belleville, and it come across the field where they have a Belleville homecoming. The homecoming was the next day. If there was a little blessing in that, it would have been bad the next day. It tore up a bunch of stuff. On the southern end of that field is where Joey lived. Joe was an equipment operator I knew. Probably do anything to help you, but he was the most vocal and devout atheist I ever met. He called this the comic book. I know him personally, I've heard him say it. He called this book right here the funny pages. Well, Joe, when he knew how bad the storm was, he got his wife downstairs in the split level and went back up to help the dog. The house blew up and they found Joey several hundred feet away. He, only guy I know to die in a weather-related storm around here. The blessings are obviously endless. The sun and the moon, the shelter, the air we breathe, this church building, the love we have for one another, one for our families, our patience, our knowledge, our wisdom, our understanding, our health. It is indeed endless. And I haven't even touched on the spiritual blessings of God, the most important. Everything I talked about means nothing compared to the spiritual blessings that you can get through Jesus Christ. Everybody in here may have, if I'd asked what your favorite blessing is, you could tell me something different, every one of you, and that'd be just fine. I think my favorite blessing is that every day God gives me just one more. I can't read this New Testament anywhere, but evangelism just jumps out at me. It's the worst thing I can do. I fail miserably every single day. But the sun comes through the wind every morning. I get up and God has gave me just one more day.